My beloved child, before you learn to distinguish the forces that seem to surround you, you must understand one principle that never changes. Light does not need to fight darkness, for darkness is merely the absence that appears when light is withdrawn. You often believe that there is a power working against you, that darkness has intention, ability, and a mission aimed at your soul. Yet the truth is far simpler. Darkness has no nature, no spirit, no freedom. It cannot invade a place where light resides. It only fills the space from which the light has been removed. When you remain in me, when you listen to my word, when you draw near to my presence, darkness loses all ground. As it is written, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Not because light wins a tense battle, but because darkness has no place to stand when light arrives. My child, think of your heart as a room when you open the window. Sunlight streams in, and there is no need to force the shadows out. They simply vanish because they have no space to exist. Likewise, when you abide in me, you do not need to wrestle with every shadow in your thoughts, every fear in your chest, every gap in your faith. My presence itself is the answer. There are times when you believe you must be strong in order to push away what makes your soul tremble. When you think you must suppress your anxiety, battle temptation, and break every whisper in your mind. But, my child, that is not my way. I never taught you to become a warrior against darkness. I taught you to be a keeper of the light. When you cling to me, you are not fighting anything. You are returning to your spiritual nature, the place where no darkness can shape your heart. Look at the seed in the soil. It does not fight to drive back the night around it. It simply reaches toward the source of light, and when the sun touches it, it rises. So it is with you. The trials of life are not insults against your soul. They are a temporary ground surrounding you, like the soil encasing the seed, not to imprison it but to nourish its sprouting once the light has reached it. I do not call you into a war with darkness. I call you to myself, for that is the place where darkness cannot stand. Often you ask, but Lord, I still see darkness within me. Does that mean your light is not enough? I tell you, my light is never lacking. It is only that you close the door of your heart when you become occupied with voices that do not belong to me. Darkness is not an enemy that attacks. It appears like water filling an empty space. When you think you must carry your burdens alone, when you let worry steal your breath, when you dissect your life with logic without asking me, you unknowingly create that space. I do not condemn you for every time you close your heart. I simply remind you that my light has never departed. You need only open the door again. Like the disciples on the Sea of Galilee who panicked when the storm rose and believed death was approaching. Yet Jesus merely stepped forward, and the winds grew still. Mark 4:3-9. He did not wrestle with the storm. He required no weapon against the waves. He simply was present. And everything that did not belong to life was forced into silence. My child, I am the one who enters your heart in the same way. You must understand something profound. Darkness does not weaken your soul. It is distance from the light that does. I do not abandon you in your trials. You step away from my presence when you turn your face from me. Remember the moments when your spirit felt dry, when you moved as though walking through fog at night, when your chest felt heavy for no clear reason. You thought something sinister was surrounding you. Yet the real cause was simply the time you allowed my word to fade into the distance. Your soul is not steeped in light when you let the thoughts of the world lead you. Some may mistake spiritual strength for constant struggle, for an endless effort to resist unseen dangers. But true strength is rest in me, where you no longer need to defend yourself. Like one who stands beneath the shade of a tree at noon, you do not wrestle with the sunlight. You simply step into the shelter, and I become your refuge. That is how my light works, not as force or constraint, but as a sacred space in which darkness dissolves on its own. There will be moments in your life when darkness seems to be winning, a disappointment that comes without warning, an accusation made in ignorance, a wound that makes you recoil, or a habit you thought you had released that returns again. You may believe your soul is being dragged downward, that this storm is stronger than your capacity to endure. But my child, I ask you, what are you looking at in that moment? Are you in the light, or have you drifted from it? Darkness gains power only when you believe you must face it alone. When you return to me, when you lift your head from the ground, when you gently whisper, "Lord, be with me," in that very moment darkness loses its claim. I do not work miracles through loud commands. Sometimes I reignite the flame in your heart with a single whisper. Do not measure light by emotion, for emotion is the smoke of the mind, while light is the breath of the soul. You need only return, and everything that once seemed powerful will reveal its true form, nothingness without life. And so, my child, when the voices of life tell you that you must resist, that you must be strong on your own, that you must stretch yourself to keep from breaking, remember that my light has never demanded such strain from you. I do not push you into a struggle for your soul. I bring you into my house, where my presence alone leaves no space for fear. I speak to you gently, but also with truth. Do not fight the darkness. You only need to come toward me. Bring me your heart to the place where I dwell, and you will see every threat that once made you tremble retreat without costing you yourself. My light is not a storm that tears everything apart. It is the breath that restores life to the soul. It is not the battle cry of a conqueror. It is the eternal stillness that rests in me. When you are in me, you do not need to win, for I have already prepared all things. And when you choose the light, you are choosing life itself. You often imagine darkness as a force with form, as a hunter pursuing your soul in the night, as an adversary calculating its strikes and waiting for the moment you grow weak. But I speak to you with a truth beyond emotion. Darkness has no will, no authority, no life. It is merely an absence where light has been forgotten. When you feel frightened, when you feel threatened, when you tremble before things you cannot name, you believe darkness is closing in. But in reality, your heart is simply lacking my presence, like a room left without a caretaker. Dust is not an intruder bursting through the door, but only the trace of neglect. Darkness does not advance upon you. Your heart simply moves away from the light and experiences the desolation of a space no longer breathing with my life. Remember the words of the Psalms. In your light we see light, Psalm 3:6-9. Not because two equal forces struggle against each other, but because wherever light exists, darkness has no essence with which to endure. There are days when you ask yourself why your heart feels heavy without a clear reason, why you no longer feel joy, yet cannot name what has changed, why ordinary things suddenly become threatening. You are not being attacked by some malevolent entity. Your soul is simply empty of my presence. Your heart is like dry soil after summer, a soil not struck by anything from outside, only deprived of water. I look at you as a gardener understands the land. It is not ruined by invisible enemies. It only loses its ability to nourish when it lacks a source of life. So it is in your soul. Darkness does not need to creep in. It simply occupies the space where your heart no longer holds my light. Do not see this as a threat. It is a gentle reminder that all life within you begins from me. And when you move away from me, you leave yourself empty, fragile, and breakable. I did not create you to survive alone in an inner wasteland. I created you to live in the light, just as a tree can only live in open air, not in a sealed room thick with dampness. You often mistake darkness for strength because you measure it by emotion. Emotion is a wave, and you see it when it rises. But darkness is not the wave, it is merely the sea without wind. When you feel fear, you believe fear is attacking you. But in truth, it is only that when light no longer shines on the shoreline of your soul, you are seeing what was already there in the ground: emptiness, insecurity that my touch has not yet healed. Remember, this darkness has no voice, no strategy, no purpose. It does not stalk you to devour you. It is simply the result of you ceasing to turn toward me. Have you ever seen a room filled with light chase darkness out? No. Light is simply present, and darkness does not exist. In the same way, your heart does not need to wrestle for every fragment of peace. It only needs to return to where I am. When you choose me, you are not fighting. You are merely opening the door to the presence that already belongs to you. I know there are times you feel as if everything is closing in around you, as if opportunities vanish, as if those who love you fall silent, as if your prayers echo into nothingness. You believe some obscure force is blocking your path. But my child, the deeper truth is this: you have allowed your heart to drift from my light, even if only a little. Darkness does not build walls. It is the heart estranged from me that creates locked doors. When you worry too much, when you ask yourself how to control everything, when you hand your authority to fear, you are not under attack. You are simply abandoning the anchor that keeps you in peace. Like a sailor rowing at night, the waves are no stronger than before. But because he no longer sees the lights of the shore, he believes the sea is against him. My child, do not confuse lack of direction with a threatening force. When I am no longer your point of reference, every path feels like an abyss. But if you turn back, you will see the dawn still stands where it has always been, never lost. And this is what you must engrave in your heart: darkness does not break you, separation from the light does. When you drift away from me, you drift from the nourishment of the soul. You choose to carry burdens instead of giving them to me. You bind yourself to battles I never called you to fight. Do not ask why your soul is weary when you have pushed aside my hand to embrace your anxieties. Do not ask why your mind is in turmoil when you have stopped drinking from the water I give. I do not blame you when you lose your way. I simply remind you that darkness has never been the cause. It is only the signal that you have neglected the light. Just as a dry tree does not break because of the wind, but because there is no nourishment in its veins, you will realize that the cracks in your soul do not come from an assault, but from abandonment. But I am here to heal. If you simply return, my light will fill the empty places, and the darkness will fade as though it never existed. My child, there is a subtle misunderstanding many people carry in their hearts. They see my light as a shield, a talisman meant to block every wound of life, to make the world harmless, to eliminate storms and sorrow. But my light does not work in that way. Light does not erase the storm from the sky, nor does it force winter to become spring. My light is the state of the soul, the warmth in your chest in the midst of frost, the place where you can still breathe when the cold wind covers everything. When you hold on to light as a weapon, you unintentionally turn me into a tool. And when that tool does not give you the result you expected, your soul will fall into disappointment. My light does not come to change the nature of the world. It changes your nature as you walk through the world. It is the psalm that speaks not in thunder, but in peace. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Read that verse, not with a mind searching for shields, but with a heart in need of refuge within. Think of warmth in winter. Warmth does not stop the snow from falling, does not force the cold wind to retreat, does not soften the frozen ground. Snow still covers the fields, wind still cuts into the skin, and the sky remains silent in its icy stillness. Yet when warmth is in your body, you can stand up, step forward, Open the door, work, and live within it. You do not wait for winter to end to begin your life. You simply keep your heart warm enough not to break. My light carries that essence. It does not promise you a life without hardship. It gives you the endurance to walk through hardship without shattering. When you misunderstand light as a barricade, you will be disappointed when the wind grows strong. But when you understand light as the breath of the soul, you will see that even when the snow lies thick, the heart does not freeze. That is why I do not call you to avoid the storm. I call you to stand firm in the storm with me. Look at the morning light slipping through the window, not knocking, not demanding attention, not battling the night. It merely arrives, gently, like one who knows its rightful place. When you open your eyes, that light does not ask whether you are ready. It simply enters the room, softens the sharp edges of the table, pours a warm hue onto the walls, and brings life back to the house. My light is like that. It does not try to prove anything, does not need to compete, does not use force to push darkness down. It simply steps into the place where the soul is no longer shut. If you treat my light as a miracle that must change the scenery, you will search for what does not exist. But if you see my light as the breath that steadies your heart, you will realize it has been there all along. No loud summons is required. Only a small opening of the heart is enough for light to find its dwelling within you. There are times when you look at your life and quietly ask why the things I permit do not disappear, why misunderstanding does not cease, why exhaustion does not transform into strength immediately, why those who hurt you still remain in your story. You believe my light has value only when it makes all that is painful vanish. But my child, that is not the nature of my light. Light does not replace circumstances. Light changes how you stand within them. When you are young in faith, you pray that I remove everything uncomfortable from your path. As you grow, you begin to understand that I place light within you so you can walk through that path without losing yourself. Maturity is not the absence of suffering, but the ability to recognize my presence within it. And when you stop seeing me as a weapon, you will begin to see me as a source of life. And here is the most important truth your soul must grasp. My light is not merely something you feel. It is something you become. It is not a coat you put on when the wind rises and remove when the skies are calm. It is the structure of the soul when you allow me to shape you. You do not need to wield it as a shield against every arrow. You live within it as one lives in a warm breath of air. When you understand light in this way, fear loses its power because it has nowhere to cling. Wounds cease to be blades because they cannot reach the deepest place in your heart. The world is no longer a menace to be avoided, but simply the terrain you walk through with my peace. When you allow my light to become your state rather than your tool, life is no longer a battlefield, but a quiet journey, where you learn how to be present with yourself and with me. There are moments in life when you feel darkness like a rising wave, as if it wants to drown you, and you fear its strength is growing with every thought, every failure, every criticism. But, my child, the truth is gentler than you imagine. Darkness does not grow. It only takes up space when light has been left behind. Remember those nights you stayed awake in front of your phone screen, your eyes tired, your mind in disarray, and your heart filled with an unnamed sadness. No one was attacking you. No invisible force leapt in to break your soul. You had simply let my presence slip beyond your embrace. And questions, anxieties, and echoes of life filled the empty place. You thought the world was pressing on you, but in reality, you were only walking without looking where the light was shining. You have walked through crowded streets and suddenly felt lost. Even though you knew exactly where you were not in danger. You were not threatened. No one surrounded you. Yet your heart turned hollow. That feeling did not come from outside. It came from within you, no longer had a point of focus. Your soul functions the same way. When you place my light behind you, you do not lose peace because darkness attacks, but because you turn your face toward a direction without guidance, like a driver at night who forgets to turn on the headlights. The road does not assault you, you simply cannot see where you are going. The potholes existed before you arrived. The curves have been there all along. But when the light goes out, every detail becomes a danger, even though these same things are harmless when illuminated. That is why you feel the world has changed, not because it has changed, but because you see it through eyes no longer guided. I know you have lived through days when a single sentence from someone could sink you, when another's silence made you feel forgotten, when small failures turned into deep wounds. It was not because those things were too powerful for you, but because you were not standing in my light. Like a house deprived of sunlight, its once ordinary corners begin to mold, suffocating those who live inside. It is not because the house is broken, but because the windows are closed. When you abandon the light, the soul does not shatter immediately. It simply begins to lose direction within the very things that once felt familiar. A colleague's reminder becomes an insult. A gentle teasing becomes an attack. A loved one's silence becomes proof of abandonment. It is not because the world has changed, but because you are walking in an empty space with no point of reference. Do you remember the time you walked through thick fog? Each step was slow, and your hand instinctively reached forward even though nothing blocked your way, simply because you could not see beyond your own arm. The fog did not push you, did not pull you, did not make you stumble. It only made you forget you already knew the road. The darkness within the soul operates in the same way. It does not strike, it disorients. It makes small matters into blades, ordinary challenges into vast chasms. When you walk in me, you go through the same roads, meet the same people, face the same struggles, yet your heart does not tremble, because you know where you stand. I do not need to change the circumstances to make you safe. I only need to keep the light within you so you can see each step clearly. And therefore, my child, every time you feel the world pressing upon you, ask yourself, where am I holding God in my heart? For when you abandon the light, you do not empower the darkness, you simply sever the cord that connects you to direction. Some will tell you that a strong soul is one that knows how to fight, but I tell you that a strong soul is one that remains within the light. You are not created to grope in the dark, to guess your way forward, to brace yourself against the night. I placed light within you so you would not live as one who depends only on feelings. When the light remains in you, every event finds its place. Every challenge has a boundary. Every pain has an exit. But when the light grows distant, the most ordinary things become storms. Not because they are overwhelming, but because you are walking without seeing the road. There are moments when you believe you are surrounded, that pressures arrive one after another like a coordinated assault, that every event is arranged to exhaust you. You look at a minor mistake and see it as evidence of complete failure. You hear a mild criticism and feel entirely rejected. You sense someone's silence and interpret it as condemnation. But my child, weakness does not come from the outside. It begins the moment you step away from the inner source where my light resides. The outside is only an echo. The inside is what defines your response. When you tie your worth to fleeting emotions or human words, you have already stepped away from the stream of living water I placed in your soul. You are like someone standing before a full well, lips parched, not because the well is dry, but because you refuse to draw from it. Events do not pierce you. You simply forget to lift the cup. One day you went to work, weighed down by a small misunderstanding. A colleague said, "You seem unfocused today." And immediately your heart constructed a narrative that they were judging your competence, that you were not good enough. that others were looking at you with disdain. That comment was not an arrow, it was only a simple observation. But when the inner source fades, your mind turns it into a wound. When the light in your soul is full, you hear such words as a reminder, even as concern. But when the light dims, they become an attack in your eyes. Weakness does not appear because someone harmed you. It begins when you no longer perceive things through the light. Like a dehydrated body, the headache is not an enemy. It is a message that the blood carries no longer enough life. Weakness is not a lost battle. It is a sign that you have stepped away from the source. You have witnessed the light at work in your life many times, but you rarely notice how it changes your responses. When you pray consistently, when your mind is watered by peace, criticism becomes an opportunity to grow. Difficult work becomes a worthy challenge to overcome. The silence of loved ones becomes a space for love to rest. But the moment you stop nourishing your soul, the moment you ignore my voice for many days, the moment you let the world dictate your heartbeat, things that were never dangerous become sharp blades, not because they are sharper, but because you have lost the inner thickness of faith. Your heart becomes like wood that has dried. The cracks do not appear because of great force, but because the moisture that once nurtured it is gone. Weakness is not an accusation. It is a message that the source has been forgotten. There are moments when you think, perhaps people are beginning to hate me. Perhaps my work is about to collapse. Perhaps I am falling behind. But I ask you, when do these thoughts appear? Do they arise when you are too busy to pray? Do they appear after many sleepless nights? When your mind is flooded with messages, comments, comparisons, do they whisper in you when you rely only on your own strength instead of opening your heart to me? Those worries are not enemies rushing toward you. They are the shadows that form when you turn your back to the light. You are not being pulled downward by a force stronger than you. You simply forget to cling to the one who lifts you up. Thoughts flow like endless currents of water without light to guide them. The heart assumes they are a flood, but when you are within me, they are merely the sound of a stream passing over stone, neither destructive nor threatening, simply flowing toward the place I have appointed. And my child, this belongs to the very core. Nothing outside can make your soul collapse unless you have already stepped away from your inner source. My light is not a shield built around you to block every arrow of life. It is the blood that runs in your veins, the warmth that keeps the heart beating steady. When you are in me, failure ceases to be a sentence. It becomes a lesson. When you are in me, silence is no longer abandonment. It becomes an opportunity for you to listen to yourself. When you are in me, accusation is no longer a blade. It opens space for you to grow. Weakness has no authority over you unless you abandon the strength already given. You were created to live from the inside outward, not the other way around. And when you remember that source, no wind can break you, because you do not stand by borrowed life, but by the light that already belongs to your soul. My child, darkness does not move toward you like a deliberate hunter. It does not lurk, waiting to pounce when you are weak, nor does it break you as some superior force. It merely stands wherever there is an empty space, waiting for the moment you stop keeping the light. When the heart grows weary, when the mind no longer has the breath of the Spirit, when you begin to give up bit by bit, that is when darkness slips in, not because it is strong, but because you have opened a crack. You are like a wall once solid when the paint still clung to its surface. But after a rainy season, just a few small fractures allow moisture to seep in. No one notices the infiltration immediately. It is not loud. It does not destroy the structure in a single night. But day by day, the vapor rests on the tiles, absorbs into the mortar, seeps deeper until the brick softens, and a single gentle touch brings an entire section crashing down. Darkness in the soul is the same. It does not knock. It seeps through every time you ignore my voice. Through every night you fall silent to me. Through every thought that says, I can endure this myself. You have seen this in your own life. When you were exhausted, you did not realize you were releasing small pieces of the light today. You skipped prayer because you were too busy. Tomorrow you stayed silent because you thought it was only temporary. The day after you told yourself, a little turmoil in my heart is fine. You did not step away from me by a dramatic act. You did it through small neglects. Like someone who leaves a dirty cup in the sink and says, I will wash it tomorrow. And tomorrow, another cup is left. Then a bowl. Then a pan still coated in oil. Not because you lack the ability, but because you keep postponing care. Until one day, the kitchen that was once clean becomes a place you no longer want to step into. Darkness does not overpower the soul. You allowed small things to accumulate until you no longer noticed how stagnation had clung to your mind. Look at the young plant in the garden. It does not break when the first wind sweeps across the field. The wind is not its enemy. What causes it to snap is the roots, not yet gripping the soil, not yet finding sustenance below, not yet learning to embrace the earth to stand firm. The wind only exposes that truth. Life does not crush you either. It shows you the places in the heart that have not anchored themselves in me. A single person's words cannot tear down your soul if your roots are placed in me. A failure cannot destroy you if your foundation rests in my light. An emotional storm cannot drown you if you know how to return to me when the rain falls. You break only when your roots no longer hold. Not because the wind is too strong, and the wind will always blow. Because the world is not a place for you to hide. You were not born to avoid the wind. You were born to take root in the light. There are things in life so small that they seem unworthy of attention. A scratch on the skin, a slight sting on the hand, a small cut on the knee. You ignore them, thinking, it's fine. But the next day, the scratch reddens. 3 days later, it swells. 7 days later, it becomes infected. Not because the blade carved deeper, but because you left it exposed to dirt, bacteria, sweat unattended, unbandaged. Your soul is the same. A small hurt is not a disaster. A moment of disappointment is not defeat. A harsh comment is not a mortal wound. But if you do not place them in my light, if you leave them uncovered in your mind, if you do not bring them into the place where I heal, they will infect the heart. And sadness becomes bitterness. Bitterness becomes suspicion. And suspicion becomes despair. Not because darkness overpowered you, but because you no longer protected the wound with the light. My child, the secret lies here. Darkness does not attack. It merely waits until you are tired. When you begin to say, I'm fine. I can handle it myself. When you think, why should I pray for something so small? When you believe, everyone goes through this. I don't need you. You have already opened the door. You are not robbed of the light. You release it. And when you release it, darkness simply does. The only thing it knows, it fills the empty space. I do not blame you for the times you are weary. But I remind you that weariness is the very moment you need me most. Not the moment you should leave me. You do not need to strain yourself to fight the darkness. You only need to return to the place where the light still stands unfading. Unclosed because of your small failures. My child, many times you believe that only when you rebel, deny, or turn away in clear ways, will it count as resisting me. You imagine that only when you rage at me, or reject me with words and obvious actions, does it mean you step out of the light? But the truth is far more subtle. You do not need to say a word. You do not need a thought of protest. You do not need a single outward action, only for you to choose silence before my voice. Not the silence of the body, but the silence of the soul, where you hear but do not respond, where you know but do not open the heart, where you feel what I am reminding you of, yet continue as though I never called your name. Ignoring the light is not a declaration of refusal, it is the choice to end the dialogue. Like someone standing before the morning window who knows the dawn is entering, yet pulls the curtain closed because they do not want to face the day. The light does not force you to open the curtain, it simply waits. And its waiting reveals that the distance began not from darkness, but from how you choose to face me. I have seen the moments when you are silent, not with your mouth, but with your heart. You sit at your desk, mind tense, and my light touches your spirit like a gentle invitation. Set this aside for just a few minutes. Speak to me, but you respond by not responding. You open another tab in the browser. You hurry to answer a message. You keep reading meaningless comments. No one is fighting for your soul in that instant. Only you choose not to look toward me. It is not an act of defiance, but it is an act of refusing communion. A quiet departure, like a close friend sitting beside a hospital bed saying softly, "I am here," while the patient turns their face to the wall. That silence is not loud, not insulting, but it is a small blade that shaves away the connection piece by piece. Souls do not shatter because of screams. They break because of prolonged, empty spaces. Silence before, my voice does not arrive in the big moments you usually prepare for. It comes in the ordinary minutes, in the hours you assume harmless, when you choose distraction instead of prayer, when you choose to enjoy a few fleeting moments instead of speaking with me, when you choose to keep the worry in your heart instead of placing it in my hands. I do not demand that you kneel every day. I do not demand that you recite scriptures for hours. I do not demand that you prove faith through asceticism. I only desire a response. You may say very little, stay with me. You may simply exhale and become aware that I am present. But when you allow your mind to drift with directionless currents, from small concerns to large ones, from tiredness to exhaustion, from confusion to isolation, at that precise moment, you have chosen silence. And then you ask why darkness comes. Yet darkness does not come, it merely steps into the space you have left unattended. I do not seek perfection in you, I seek attention. My light does not require you to be strong enough, moral enough, persistent enough. It only waits for you to open your lips. But when you choose silence, the light does not vanish like someone who has been banished. It simply stands outside the circle of your awareness, waiting for the door to crack open. That is why many souls mistakenly think, perhaps he has turned away. They look into the winter of their own hearts. They feel the chill of anxiety. They hear the noise of the world. And they ask, "Are you still there?" I am still there. But your door is shut. Just as the dawn does not abandon the earth because a person pulls the curtain closed. I do not forsake you because you were silent once. But the peace I offer you will not feel it if you do not choose to speak with me. And here is what you must engrave deeply. Neglecting the light is not the same as opposing me. It is subtler, softer, more dangerous. The one who resists will soon realize they need me. But the silent one will walk far away without ever feeling they have left. You do not need to resent me in order to be lost. You only need to stop talking to me. I do not call you with thunder. I call you with gentle breath, with small intuitions, with delicate movements in the soul. When you answer, that bond becomes as strong as roots digging deep into the earth. When you do not, the bond does not disappear, but it no longer nourishes you. Like a tree standing in the rain without drinking, life flows around it but does not pour inside. There are moments when you believe that ignoring my voice, failing to answer the gentle reminders, stepping back because of weariness or confusion, causes the darkness within you to form like a new entity. But, my child, darkness is not a cloud born from disobedience. It is merely the disorientation of a soul that no longer recognizes where the light dwells. Darkness has no form, no voice of its own, no purpose. It is simply what remains when you no longer look toward me. Like someone accustomed to the sunlight beyond the window. If they draw the curtain long enough, they will forget that the sun has never disappeared. Night does not arrive to conquer. It is only the sky when the light is hidden from sight. When you ignore my voice, the soul is not invaded. It simply strays from its point of orientation. I have seen you walk through such seasons. Each passing day, you believe you are fine. Still working, still smiling, still replying to messages and completing every obligation. Yet, in the small pauses, between two conversations, between two weary breaths, I see you asking yourself, why do I feel nothing anymore? You are not hurt, not angry, not despairing, only empty. You assume this is the normalization of emotions. But in truth, it is the signal that you are losing the ability to recognize where the light stands waiting. Ignoring my voice does not create a new curse. It only prevents you from discerning where the invitation lies. Like a person lost at an intersection, it is not because the roads have vanished, it is because they no longer recognize they have walked there before. The ache does not arrive immediately. You think you can manage it. You think only for a while. You think, once I finish this, I will return. But like someone wandering in the forest who refuses to look at the stars because they are busy searching the ground beneath their feet, the farther you walk, the more you lose direction. I do not leave you. My light remains in the same place, unchanged, unmoving, unhesitant. But when you no longer open your heart to listen, no longer allow the small reminders to enter, you begin living by the instincts of the flesh instead of the rhythm of the soul. And in that state, ordinary things become trials. A simple suggestion becomes an attack. Someone's silence becomes a threat. A quiet moment becomes an abyss. Not because they have changed, but because you no longer know where the spiritual north lies. Think of the sailor. He does not create the sea, does not command the wind, does not order the waves. He needs only one thing: to look up at the stars to know his direction. If one night he decides not to look, not to record his coordinates, not to open his map, the sea will not suddenly grow violent. It is he who will lose direction, and ordinary waves will turn into danger. Ignoring my voice is the same. I do not force you to hear me so that I may love you. I invite you to hear so that you may still know the way home. You do not summon darkness when you temporarily forget me. You only drop the compass, then insist that the sea is angry. I do not let you drift. You are the one who lets go of the side of the boat. Do not confuse temporary comfort with the place where I am waiting. You may turn to quick pleasures, empty conversations, impulsive purchases, a few compliments, a little escape into entertainment, and believe that your heart has grown lighter. But these are only the cotton stuffed into your ears so you cannot hear my voice. They do not heal. They only make every sound around you louder once the cotton falls away. When you no longer hear me, you begin to hear yourself too much. And in those hours, small questions become boulders. Gentle worries become chains, not because they have grown stronger, but because you have wandered away from the one who helps you recognize truth. My child, when you stop listening to the light, the soul does not fall into darkness at once. It simply begins to look at life through emotion instead of through the truth I have placed within you. Emotion is not evil, but it is not a compass. It is like the tide, always shifting with the wind, with the season, with the pull of the moon, unstable, unsteady, unable to hold direction. If you let emotion guide you, You will always live in the rise and fall of a heartbeat you yourself cannot understand. One day you feel strong because of someone's praise. The next you are drained simply by an indifferent glance. When you ignore the light, these fluctuations become normal. You no longer ask, "Where is he leading me?" but instead ask, "What do people think of me?" You no longer seek wisdom in me, but search every hidden corner of the internet to see whether you are being left behind. You think the world is harsh, when in reality your soul has merely placed its hand on a wheel that was never created to steer. Feelings are like waves beating against the shore. They can shift the sand, but they never alter the shape of the rock. I did not teach you to become sand. I taught you to become stone. Remember the moments when you were at peace, yet a meaningless message suddenly made your heart tremble, or when a simple silence from a loved one made you believe you had been forgotten. The world had not become harsher. Your heart was simply searching for a compass in places that could not guide you. Just as a sailor uses the wind instead of a map, you may move very quickly, but you will have no idea where you are going. When you allow emotions to become your compass, the only outcome is that you are spun around by unstable things. And then you blame life for the storm. But the sea never changed its direction. It was only you who forgot to look north. I have watched you pass through many seasons like that. When you are joyful, you think I am blessing you. When you are sorrowful, you think I have abandoned you. When circumstances are favorable, you say, "The light is with me." When you face difficulty, you ask, "Why did you do this, my child?" The light does not operate according to the graph of your emotions. My light is the constant even when tears are still resting on your lashes. The warmth, even when life has not yet become gentle. The sunrise, even when the sky remains gray. You are mistaken when you think light is the stability of your moods. Emotions are only the temperature of the surface. Light is the core of the soul. Just as ashes may spread across the mouth of a furnace but cannot extinguish the embers beneath. Life may cover you with uncomfortable moments without stealing your essence in me, unless you believe that the ashes are all there is. Do not blame life when you allow emotions to lead the way. Emotions are like ocean waves. They have no morality, no purpose. They do not know me, and they do not know you. They only react to stimuli. A small compliment may make you imagine you have matured, while a single criticism may make you think your soul is collapsing. When you overlook the light, you become like a person standing in the storm, asking, "Why does the wind blow?" The wind always blows. Storms always come and go. I do not ask you to live in a world without tempests. I ask you to learn how to hold the helm without relying on those fickle winds. Like an experienced captain, he does not listen to the sound of the waves to find direction. He looks to the stars. You were not born to chase moods. You were born to navigate by the light. And this is what I want you to understand deeply when you surrender your soul to emotions. You will always reach the wrong conclusion about reality. You will treat a reminder as an insult, a temporary failure as a final verdict, my silence as abandonment, and delay as punishment. But these things are only the surface of the sea when you are no longer looking at the map. I have not stolen your direction. You simply put the compass down. Ignoring the light is not betrayal, not violence, not rebellion. It is just a small but dangerous act. Let me rely on myself for now. And when you follow yourself, you must endure yourself even when you are tired, discouraged, or lost. Emotions do not know the way home. They only know how to drag you along the waves. Before you can walk with me through the wide territories of the Spirit, you must understand a truth that many souls neglect. Light does not come to build a fortress around you, to keep every event outside and let you live as one shielded from life. Light comes to change how you understand safety. The world wants you to believe that safety is when there is no trial, no disturbance, no criticism, no adversity. But I tell you, safety is when your heart knows where to return, whether the winds are strong or the sea is turbulent, like a child holding a father's hand while crossing the street. Safety does not lie in the cars stopping, it lies in the hand that never lets go. The light within you is the same. It does not erase everything that could frighten you. It teaches you to see fear through eyes that no longer belong to darkness. There were moments when you prayed to be kept from pain, when you asked me to remove every hardship, when you begged that doors which close in front of you would never appear again. You believed that peace only exists when storms disappear. But my child, what you were asking for is not light. You were asking for a sterile world, one that never changes, never has sharp edges. You forgot that the soul was not created to be safe, like a stone buried under the earth, but to endure like a tree standing strong in the wind. A tree is strong not because the wind is gentle, but because its roots have gone deep into the soil. Light does not come to make the wind vanish. It comes to teach you where to plant your roots. When you measure safety by external calm, you will live your whole life like one who fears noise. But when you measure safety by the light within, you will walk through things others call dangerous without losing yourself. I know you have asked, why did you not keep me from stumbling? You once wished I would open every road and close every door that troubled you. But you did not realize that without anything to make you afraid, you would forget how to live by faith. If there were only sunlight and never clouds, the world would become barren. If there were only spring and never winter, the tree would grow soft and its roots would no longer know how to reach deeper. My light is not a coating that shields you from every impact. It is the force that allows you to stand firm amid those impacts. Like dawn slipping through the window, it does not clean the room, does not change the curtains, does not rearrange the furniture, but simply by its presence, it makes you see everything differently. Light does not change the space, it changes your ability to perceive it. And I want you to see this truth with eyes no longer blinded by fear when you live outside the light. You view the world as a landscape of traps, always waiting to devour you. You slow down not because you are wise, but because you are suspicious. You become cautious not because you have matured, but because you lack trust. You analyze every person, every opinion, every word, only to discover whether they intend to hurt you. My child, that is the sign of a soul without direction, not a soul that is vigilant. When the light is within you, you still walk on rocky paths, still cross deserts, still face those who do not understand you, but you no longer interpret everything through the lens of danger. You interpret through peace. I am with you. And then, the things that once were threats become simply challenges through which you grow. This is what I want your soul to hold firmly. Like bedrock, light does not promise that you will never be misunderstood, never be wounded, never fail, never be lonely. Light promises that in those things, you will not lose yourself. When you understand this, you will no longer ask me to remove every storm. You will ask me to teach you how to breathe in the wind. You will no longer ask me to make the world comfortable. You will ask me to make your heart no longer misguided. You will no longer ask life to be less harsh. You will ask your soul to recognize my presence within. And when you ask in this way, you will receive far more than you expected, not merely protection, but transformation, not merely peace, but the ability to create peace in places where others see only chaos. My child, there are moments when you think that peace is the reward of favorable days, when work flows smoothly, when people are kind to you, when someone understands your heart, when every door opens at just the moment you touch it. You imagine peace as the combination of luck and a quiet sky, believing that if you could simply avoid unpleasant things, you would no longer feel exhausted. But peace is not the absence of challenges. Peace is the state of the soul when it releases the illusion of control and places the full weight of its life upon me. A mountain is not secure because the wind never blows, but because its deepest part rests in the earth. Your heart is the same. It is not safe when life is easy. But when it seeks me, even while gasping for breath, you have asked me many times to clear the road for you, to remove the people who trouble you, to change the circumstances so you can breathe more easily. But you rarely ask me to change the way you breathe. You want the world to grow quiet, while I want your soul to become peaceful, even when the world is loud. Like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, frightened by the strong wind. You cling desperately to loose stones and grow bitter because they cannot help you. Only when you turn around and lean against the great rock behind you do you realize that the wind was never the problem. Peace does not come from weaker winds. It comes from leaning on the right place. There are times when your life is covered in small needles, a reminder from your superior, a friend being late, a forgotten message, a conversation that does not unfold the way you wished. You say, "Why does everything hurt me?" But you forget that you are letting each small thing touch the softest part of your heart, without letting me become the layer of skin that shields it. You are not weary because the world is unjust. You are weary because your heart stands alone before every impact. When you lean on me, the scratches still exist, but they no longer pierce into your blood. Like someone wearing armor, they still hear the sound of contact, but they do not feel pain. There have been moments when peace worked in your life without you realizing it. There were days the storm surrounded you, yet it never entered you. You did not know why you still went to work, still smiled, still loved those who had hurt you. Those days were not quieter than other days. Your heart was simply resting in my hands without your awareness. Peace is not the silence outside. Peace is the endurance within you. It does not prevent you from feeling pain. It simply keeps pain from becoming the reason that defines your life. My child, you will never avoid the seasons you do not want. The world is not a flat land designed to accommodate you. There is a dry season for the roots to dig deeper. There is a rainy season for the soul to soften. There is a windy season for you to learn how to cling. There is a dark season for you to understand the worth of the faintest light. Peace does not come when I remove the 4 seasons. Peace comes when your soul understands that no matter the season, I am still your soil. A seed does not demand an endless spring. It only needs to know its roots have entered the right place. My child, many people seek peace as they seek a pleasant feeling. They want no anxiety, no wounds, no conflict, no racing heartbeat. They think peace is the perfect silence of emotion, the lake whose surface never ripples, the mind without a single tangled thought. But my peace is not that emptiness. My peace is communion, not stillness. It is the place where you stand in the light, knowing that you do not need to argue with life to prove your worth. Do not need to hide your wounds to appear strong. Do not need to run from hardship to protect your heart. Peace does not remove the waves. Peace is the boat that knows who stands on the deck, so it no longer trembles at every gust of wind. When you pursue peace as an emotional state, you will always feel disappointed. Affection comes and goes. Praise today becomes silence tomorrow. Those who supported you may walk away when they are tired. And when you look to emotions for peace, you will always beg circumstances to change. But when you seek peace as communion with me, you will no longer require the world to be perfect in order for your soul to rest. You will not need to control people, nor predict the future, nor prepare 30 exit plans for a single situation. You will need only one place to stand where I am present. Communion is not a feeling, it is a foundation. It is the home you return to, not the wind you chase. When your heart abides in communion with me, you no longer need to prove yourself with words, success, resilience, or image. Those who attack you are no longer enemies. They are simply souls who do not yet know where to return. Those who misunderstand you are no longer threats, they are people lost in their own darkness. When you live in me, you do not need to push others away to preserve peace. Because peace is no longer territory you must defend. You do not need to avoid those who have hurt you, because you know their wounds no longer have the right to define you. You do not need to struggle to keep the respect of others, because the light within you needs no certification from them. There are moments when you think peace is the reward for those who are strong enough, but peace does not come after you have proven your strength. Peace is what I give, so you do not need to prove anything at all. Like a bird perched on a branch during a storm, it is not peaceful because the branch is sturdy, but because its wings know how to open when needed. You are the same. Peace does not come from a gentler world, but from a soul that knows I will lift it when it falls. When you understand this, you will stop asking me to remove every burden. You will begin to ask me to be with you in each burden. And that is the prayer of the mature, not to evade life, not to resist life, but to walk through life with me. And my child, when you enter communion, every disappointment ceases to be punishment. Every sorrow ceases to be a sentence. Every stumble ceases to be proof of your inadequacy. They are only the motions of a soul learning how to live with the light. Like a child learning to walk, it does not resent its legs for being unsteady. It simply falls and rises again, because the mother's hand has never left it. Do not treat peace as a destination. Treat it as the act of returning to that hand each time you forget. Peace is your stepping back into the relationship. I have always opened a space where you are seen, understood, and carried. From the origin of the universe, I established a simple principle that surpasses human comprehension. Light does not oppose darkness. Light only needs to appear. Darkness is not an enemy to be conquered, not a force to compete against, not a power that fights back. It is merely the space into which light has not yet been allowed to enter. When I spoke the first words in the history of creation, "Let there be light," Genesis 1:3, I did not declare war. I did not summon armies of angels. I did not drive darkness back with storm or flame. I simply spoke, and light appeared. Darkness did not resist. It simply dissolved like mist before the sun. Look closely. The victory of light does not come from strength, but from essence. For light to exist is enough. Just as when you open the window in the morning, the night does not scream as it flees, does not resist, and you do not need to sweep it away with a broom or wash it out with water. It simply falls aside as the light enters. The veil of night does not need to be broken. It simply disappears when dawn fills the room. Likewise, your soul does not need to wage war against fears, memories, or dark emotions with your own strength. You only need to open a narrow space for light to enter. The things that make you tremble are not powerful. They only occupy the places where you have closed the door against me for too long. Darkness is not born from power, but from absence. Like a forgotten room, it does not become damp because an enemy attacked, but because no one opened the door to welcome the sunlight. There are times when you try to resist the darkness, like someone throwing themselves into ocean waves. At night you try to control your thoughts. Stop anxiety, erase emotions, and wrestle painful memories to the ground. You believe you must reclaim every inch of your soul through inner strength. But my child, that is not how light operates. Light does not hunt, does not purge, does not compete. It simply stands, and everything that does not belong to it withdraws on its own. When you try to defeat darkness, you have already believed it possesses real power. When you allow the light to appear, you discover that darkness has never had substance. You do not need to strain yourself to be strong. You only need to let me be present in the corners you have avoided. I have seen you exhaust yourself in battles that never needed to be fought. You try to change others so you can feel safe. You argue to protect your dignity. You avoid relationships because you fear being hurt. You suppress unpleasant thoughts because you believe only your own strength can keep them away. But I tell you this, you do not have to wage war against your soul. You only need to let me enter, like sunlight piercing the morning mist. I do not need to chase every droplet away. I only need to be present. And the mist dissolves by itself. You do not need to tear down the walls within you with a sledgehammer. You only need to open the window a little. Let the light pour in. And those walls will become meaningless beneath a new perspective. And this is what I want you to engrave within yourself. Strength does not lie in the battles you create, but in the presence you allow. You do not need to prove that you are holy enough to receive light. You only need not to shut it out. You do not need to eliminate every fear in order to feel peace. You only need to let me dwell in the midst of that fear. My light does not come to fight in your place, but so that you no longer need to fight at all. When you stop treating darkness as an opponent, you begin to see that I am not a shield, but the air you breathe. And my child, air does not compete for space. It simply fills every opening you permit. Light does not only make darkness disappear and then stop. It does more than that. It touches your soul, revives the rhythm that once grew weary, and awakens the breath you thought you had long lost. When you let the light enter, you do not merely see everything around you clearly, you start to reclaim yourself. There are seasons when you do not realize your heart has begun to beat slower, not because the world has attacked you, but because you have walked too long without leaning on me. You still live, still work, still smile at others, but inside there is a quiet exhaustion with no words. I do not come simply to wipe away the darkness around you. I come to restore what the darkness has made. You forget the warmth of a soul that knows it is not alone. Like someone standing by an open window at dawn. You do not simply see the sunlight, you feel your body warming. That light makes your heart beat differently, makes you breathe deeper, makes you remember you are still alive. My presence is the same. It is not merely a beam cutting through the room. It is the wellspring rising within you. When you are so tired that you cannot even call my name. When you stand before choices you do not understand. When all you can do is bow your head and remain silent. I still pour gentle breath into your heart like wind slipping through a curtain. You may not notice it at once, but every cell of your soul is awakened little by little, steadily, like the heartbeat returning after a long night. I do not come so that you will not fear anymore. I come so that you may love. Even while fear still lingers outside the window, there are evenings when you lay your head on the pillow, stare at the ceiling, and your thoughts rush without end. And you think your only prayer is, please take these worries away. But my child, if I were to remove your worries without touching the rhythm of your heart, they would return the moment life shakes you again. I do not want you to live as someone who needs to tidy the world before breathing, who must wipe the sky clean before sleeping, who needs everything quiet before believing they are loved. I want you to have a heart that beats steadily, even when the world outside remains loud. I want your peace not to come from the absence of storms, but from the fullness of my presence within you. Feel this when I am present. Fear does not vanish, it loses the right to define you. Pain is not entirely erased, it loses the power to make you collapse. Old memories do not evaporate, they lose their position as the compass of your life, like a slackened string that has not forgotten its music. Your heart may tremble, but it still knows how to resonate when I touch it. I do not heal your soul by replacing everything you once had. I restore you by returning you to the rhythm that belonged to you from the beginning, the rhythm of one who knows they belong to the light. You do not need to tense yourself to be strong, and you do not need to push away every shadow. You only need to listen to the heartbeat you have when you are in me and when you hear it. You will know it is not the rhythm of you alone, but of you and me. And my child, this is what I want you to remember. whenever you feel your soul is too weary to rise. I am not merely a source of light that soothes your eyes. I am the source of life that soothes your heart. When you return to me, you do not simply find shelter, you rediscover the inner life that had been forgotten. I do not ask you to change everything so you may earn the right to receive the light. I allow my presence to become the place of your rebirth. Like a cord rewoven strand by strand, I weave your soul back together with the truth that you are still more than you believe. Not because you have become stronger, but because I have never grown weak within you. When the soul grows tired and the heart falters, you often look backward, like someone walking through fog, turning to find the sunlit path behind them. You think peace lies in the days already past, in the seasons when you were less afraid, less bruised, less broken. You tell yourself that if I could just go back, everything would be easier. Everything would be simpler. But my light does not lead you back to a beautiful moment that has already closed. It leads you into the present, where I am still breathing life into your soul. The past may be the place where you once understood me, but the present is the place where you need me. Light is not a door that takes you backward. It is the opening that allows you to set your feet on the ground today and say, "Here, you still remain with me." There are memories you hold tightly to prove you were once strong. Seasons when you diligently studied the Word, when you lived gently, when you prayed with tears because you knew you were loved. You look upon those times and whisper, "If only I had not changed." But my child, memory is not the source of life. It is only a preserving solvent. Light does not exist to return you to an older version of yourself. It comes to grow you from the very place you stand now. A tree that has borne fruit does not return to being a seed. Yet the seed continues to live within the fruit. What I sowed in you in the past has not been lost, nor was it given so you would turn back to find it. It is within you now, waiting to be awakened by the very light that is calling your name. When you search the past to reassure yourself, you unintentionally freeze your own being. You take the seasons of what once was as the measurement for your faith today, and then you feel disappointed because you are no longer the person you used to be. You think you are declining, but I tell you this, you are being redirected. The soul does not grow by repeating the pages of life that have passed. It grows by letting the light shine on the pages that are still being written. You remember the peaceful seasons, only to know that I can do it, not to believe that I can only do it in the past. I am not a memory, I am presence. And presence never belongs to what has already gone by. It belongs to where you are standing and where you are about to step. My child, look at the people who walk beneath the dawn. They do not look back and ask the sun to illuminate the paths they have already traveled. They let the light fall upon their faces, their eyes, and their present steps. You are the same. You do not need the light to prove that you were once right. You need the light to know where you are being led. Your wounds do not need to be compared with the days when your heart was strong. They need to be placed beneath the light so they may heal right now. Your brokenness does not need to be erased from history. It needs to be touched by me as fresh soil where new seeds can be sown. The past is not a place for you to return to. It is the witness that I have never left you. And here is what I want you to engrave into your heart. The light does not tell you to live as you once were. The light invites you to become who you are today. I do not ask you to wear the spiritual garments that no longer fit. I do not ask you to imitate a former version of yourself. I do not ask you to squeeze back into patterns that once made you temporarily stable. I ask only one thing: return to the place where I am walking beside you, in the present. For you do not live in once upon a time. You live in now. My life does not flow backward. It flows from me to you with every breath. And when you realize this, you will no longer mourn past seasons of beauty. You will know that the next beautiful season begins in the very moment you open your heart to me today. When pain appears, the soul's first reaction is often to withdraw. You pull your feet away from the journey. You close the windows that were once wide open. You shield your heart beneath a coat of suspicion. You stop believing in gentle winds just because a storm once overwhelmed you. You stop receiving new hands because an old one once let go. You think that self-protection is wisdom, that building walls is awakening, that shrinking into yourself is the way to preserve peace. But the light does not come to turn you into someone who lives in the bunker of their past. The light comes to teach you that strength is not found in avoiding your falls, but in learning how to rise again with a heart that is not frozen. When a wound has not been healed, you interpret every soft touch as a strike. Every word becomes an arrow. Every silence becomes rejection. Every reminder becomes an insult. You will read life in the language of your pain. But my child, the light does not erase the falls recorded in the history of the soul, nor does it paint over the cracks with a fresh layer. The light helps you see the wound as soil for growth. A young sapling bent by the wind is not doomed to live forever as a broken tree. I designed it so its roots would learn to reach deeper into the earth. A fall is not the final statement, it is only the signal that the roots need to return to the source of water. I do not teach you to fear the wind, I teach you to understand where the ground is. When you close your heart, you may no longer feel pain, but you are no longer alive. You hide your dreams in a drawer so they cannot be mocked. You keep your ambitions in secret so they cannot be belittled. You avoid contact with people so they cannot hurt you. You turn your heart into an antique sealed in glass, beautiful, fragile, and afraid to touch life. But my light does not place you in a display case. It places you on a road where others walk, where there is wind, sun, and seasons. I did not create your soul to become a relic. I created it to become a story to live, to learn, to open. You will not find peace by hiding. Peace blossoms only when you understand that you can continue forward. My child, look at a child learning to walk. They fall again and again. They cry. They tremble. But they stand up because their heart has not yet learned fear. Adults trip once and want to stop forever, while children fall 10 times and still laugh, because they have not yet believed that falling is failure. I want your heart to return to that nature. I do not want you to treat pain as an enemy. I want you to treat pain as a teacher. For pain does not come to destroy, it comes to remind you that you need to lean on me. Even the Son endured the path of the cross, not to prove that he felt no pain, but to prove that love is greater than all suffering, and by that, you have life. I look at you and I know clearly many of your wounds did not come from great catastrophes. They came from neglected words, indifferent glances, fading friendships, unmet expectations. But your heart has used those small wounds as the reason to close its doors to the world. I do not blame you. You are doing what the soul naturally does when it loses direction. But I want you to see this. Closing yourself only prevents the light from entering. It does not protect you from darkness. It simply keeps the darkness inside longer. You do not need to build more walls. You need to open so the light can restore the places where you once fell, not by denying the past, but by placing it in my hands. When walking in the world, you often think that strength is something you must wear like armor. You believe that if you show weakness, people will mock you. If you reveal your pain, they will take advantage. If you admit exhaustion, they will leave you behind. So you withdraw into a proud silence, conceal the soft corners of your heart, and unintentionally turn your soul into a battlefield. You are not living, you are defending. But my light does not come to turn you into someone who must constantly brace themselves. It comes to free you from the burden of proving that you are strong enough, resilient enough, worthy enough. I did not place you in this life to live like a harsh warrior, haunted by the opinions of others. I placed you here like a stream, where water flows not to earn merit, but to nourish. There are days when you think, If I endure more, if I stay silent, if I become stronger, people will respect me. You do not realize that the respect you are chasing is not a spiritual need, but the echo of your fear of being abandoned. You try to prove yourself through achievements, through composure, through stubbornness. You strain not out of love, but out of defense. But my child, that kind of strength cannot last. It drains you, contracts your soul like a leaf tightened by frost. I do not invite you into my presence with hands full of victories. I invite you with a bare heart. The light does not ask how many battles you have won. The light only asks if you are willing to lay down your sword. When you rely on the light, you do not need to prove anything. You do not need to say, I am fine. When you are not fine, you do not need to pretend to be strong to avoid the pitying gaze of the world. Instead, you begin to live like someone who knows they have a steady place to lean, like a person standing beside the edge of a high cliff. They do not need to shout that they are brave, as long as the safety rope is fastened around them. They can step across each rocky foothold without trembling. My light is that rope. It does not demand that you be flawless before it binds itself to you. It only asks that you believe I will hold you even when you lose your balance. In the light, you do not need to be strong in order to survive. You only need to know that you are not alone in order to continue. My child, I do not ask whether you are beautiful in the eyes of the world. I ask whether you are in me. People measure strength by outward signs. Who speaks loudly, who does not cry, who always stands upright. But I see strength in the places where no one looks, in the moment you collapse, but do not fall from my hand. In the instant you accept the truth that you are weak, so that I may become your strength. There are souls who think themselves unbreakable only because they have not yet met the wind. There are other souls who tremble every time the storm arrives, but still walk toward the dawn, and it is precisely these souls I call resilient. True strength is not found in the ability to never break, but in the trust that there is a hand beneath you when you do. Here is what I want you to understand. The light never asks you to become a stone statue. It does not tell you to freeze your emotions. It does not tell you to close your heart. It does not tell you to become indifferent in order to avoid pain. The light teaches you to live with a heart open like a doorway, not because the world deserves you, but because I am standing right behind the door. When you know I am there, you do not fear who might enter and wound you, because you know no one can destroy what I protect. The greatest freedom is not the absence of injury. The greatest freedom is knowing that even if you are hurt, you do not lose your place in me. My child, there are times when you look back over your life and wonder why you have not progressed as far as others. You compare your steps to the steps of souls who never stumble. You count the times you have had to start over. You measure your worth by speed, by milestones, by the approval stamped in the eyes of the world. And then you conclude that perhaps you are not strong enough, not talented enough, not faithful enough. But my light does not come to ask how far you have traveled. The light only asks whether you are willing to turn your face toward it right now. I do not look at the soul through the length of the journey. I look through the direction of the heart. A weak step taken in the right direction has more worth than 100 powerful strides running toward darkness. There are moments when you think that maturity is a path that always goes forward. You believe that only by continuing, and continuing can you prove yourself worthy. But, my child, there are seasons when I do not call you to take another step. I only invite you to turn around. The more impatiently you try to move quickly, the more easily you drift far away. Like someone standing in the desert, if they stare only at the path beneath their feet and never look to the sun, they will walk in circles without knowing it. You believe you have gone far because you are tired, but in truth, you have simply gone astray. The light does not ask you to accelerate. It asks you to pause, look up, and ask, am I still walking toward you? There are souls who ask me, why do you not give me the strength to go faster? But I ask them, in return, why do you keep running without looking at me? You do not lose peace because you have not reached your goals, but because you have stopped turning toward the source of peace. You look at your achievements, at applause, at social position to measure your value, while I measure value by the smallest turning of the heart when you realize you have gone the wrong way. The world will celebrate the one who conquers the mountain. I seek the soul who kneels when they have lost the path. With me, returning is not defeat. It is the sign that the soul has found the rhythm that was always meant for it. My child, looking toward the light is not like looking at a target to achieve. The light does not demand that you improve yourself before you come. It does not tell you to be stable, strong, or radiant before you look at it. The light asks only for a single action, simple yet decisive, for the entire spiritual life to change direction. If your heart turns toward me, darkness no longer has the right to interpret you. You may stand in difficulty, in busyness, in the midst of mistakes yet to be repaired. But if you have already turned your face toward me, you have already stepped into the path of restoration. You do not need to be finished. You only need not turn your back. And I want you to understand this. With deep peace, the light does not ask how long it will take for you to change. The light only asks whether you are willing to begin today. You may carry burdens, regrets, wounds not yet healed. I do not demand you put them down before returning. For you cannot make yourself light. Only when you turn toward the light do those things begin to lose their weight. Like a traveler in the night, they do not need dawn to appear at once. They only need to face the place where the sun will rise. Your future is not decided by the road already walked, but by the direction your heart chooses in this moment. You once believed that in order to change, you had to endure something dramatic, a great disaster, a glorious battle, a fall so devastating you could not stand up without a miracle. You waited for the moment when everything would collapse completely so that you could name the restoration. You thought only those who have survived storms have the right to become new. But I tell you, healing does not always arrive with an explosion. Many times it begins as a gentle warmth, slipping through the cracks of your heart when you no longer have the strength to resist. I do not always mend the soul with lightning. Often I place my hand on your shoulder in the quietest moments where you no longer shout because of pain, where you are tired enough to stop bracing yourself, where your heart can only whisper, please be here. You have witnessed people change because of devastation, but you have also seen souls restored simply by a gentle glance, a moment of being understood, a single, silent embrace. The fire within you makes you believe that life must be overturned like a raging sea in order to be called awakening, but the seed does not break the earth with a roar. It is silent, sprouting in the darkness, and one day, gently pushing through the soil. I restore your soul in that way, not by ripping everything from your hands, not by forcing you to endure long nights to prove your pain. I only need you to open a small window, so that the light can begin tracing its way into the places you once locked shut. The greatest healing is not an event, but a process where the light patiently enters every empty space, every fracture, every broken passage you never dared to look at. When you insist on seeking restoration in fire and smoke, you unknowingly treat pain as the only language I use to speak to you. You wait for storms to know I am still there. You wait for lightning to believe I am intervening. But, my child, there are seasons when I do not choose thunder, I choose dawn. I do not shout in your ear through the roar of events. I call your name with a very gentle voice, like a breeze gliding across dry land. You once ignored those whispers because they were not dramatic, not painful, not life-changing. So you kept walking until the wound exploded before turning back. But restoration does not require tragedy to begin. It only needs a humble heart that recognizes you cannot save yourself. Some come to me with tears flooding over. Some come to me when the world around them collapses. But I also see the souls who quietly return on an ordinary afternoon. No tears. No screams. Only a deep exhaustion reaching its threshold. I do not classify returns. I do not give more grace to the shattered one than to the one who merely falters. What determines restoration is not the measure of pain, but the direction in which you turn. Do not think that only when you are utterly depleted are you worthy of healing. You have always been worthy even in the moments when you believed you were fine. While deep within your soul you knew you no longer carried the breath of light. My child, remember this as the bedrock of your spiritual life. Restoration is not a firework exploding across a dark sky. It is a small lamp lit when you acknowledge that you do not want to sink into the night any longer. No one will see that process from the outside. People look at you and say, "Nothing has changed." But I look at the roots. I listen to the heartbeat. I know the heart is turned. For when you turn toward me, even by a weak gesture, a weary breath, a prayer, unfinished restoration has begun. No smoke, no flame, no applause, only my presence dwelling in the place you give me, and everything else will slowly be rewoven. There is a truth many souls fail to recognize. True light does not seek to impress. It does not arrive to dazzle the world. It needs no fireworks to be seen. It needs no crowds to feel valuable. A soul walking into my light does not shout. It does not need to proclaim that it has changed. It is like an oil lamp in a house at midnight, not radiant like the sun, but enough to illuminate every step. That light does not debate with darkness or fight for every inch of space. It simply stands still. And by its stillness, the darkness retreats. Your soul is the same. Its strength does not lie in noise, but in the stability that others cannot deny. There are those who believe that to shine, they must constantly speak about their faith, display their zeal, prove to the world that they have overcome their trials. They wave their arms beneath the gaze of others, like someone in the ocean who tries to prove he can swim by making large waves. But steady souls do not make waves. They are like calm waters reflecting the sky. Others do not see their faith in their words, but in the tranquility of their eyes, in the way they walk through rainy days, in the way they do not cry out when wounded, and do not boast when life favors them. Light does not need to make you remarkable. Light only needs to make you enduring. And what endures will outlast everything noisy. As you mature in my light, you will realize that stability is not cold silence. It is not a frozen heart, nor a person who withdraws from life to avoid being hurt. Stability is a heart that knows where to rest its weight, and therefore cannot be blown away by praise or criticism. People may come and go. Circumstances may change every day. The road may twist with countless surprises. Yet your soul will keep its rhythm. Not because you are strong, but because you no longer rely on emotion to chart your direction. Like an ancient tree standing in a courtyard, it cannot avoid the wind, cannot stop the rain, cannot explain itself to every storm as to why it still stands there. It simply stands, and time itself will acknowledge how deep its roots have gone. My child, I know you once ran to prove you were enough. You once spoke loudly so no one would belittle you, forced yourself to smile so your wounds would not be seen, kept yourself busy so you would not have to face the fear inside. You believed that stability must have a shape, a stern face, a firm voice, a posture that bows to no one. But the stability I give does not come from posture, it comes from connection. The stable person is not stable because they know every answer, but because they know where to bring their questions. They are not stable because they are less attacked, but because when they are attacked, they return to me instead of returning to their fear. Such a simple act, turning toward me instead of turning inward, is enough to make the soul a lamp that never goes out. And here is what I want you to carry in your heart like a small but weighty stone. A radiant soul does not need to make noise. It does not need admiration. It does not need a crowd. It does not need the lead role. It only needs to be faithful to my rhythm. Do not try to become the sun when I have called you to be the dawn. The dawn does not arrive with thunder. It comes as a pale streak along the horizon. Yet that streak ends an entire night. When you are steady in me, you do not need to prove you are the light. You become the doorway through which the light passes. And then it no longer matters whether others see you. What matters is that anyone who comes near you will fear the darkness within themselves less. A soul does not become peaceful because you are strong enough to confront darkness, nor because life suddenly becomes less harsh. My light does not come to give you thicker armor, but to leave darkness without a place to cling. When light is present, darkness does not become a lurking enemy. It becomes an empty space, stripped of its power to threaten. Like a craftsman who enters his old workshop at night, he does not stumble, searching for the way, because he knows every table, every ledge, every corner. Darkness does not frighten him, not because his eyes see through it, but because the room is no longer unfamiliar. Psalm 1:19105 reminds you, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. The lamp does not make you braver, it simply makes the road real. And when the road becomes real, fear has no reason to remain. When you walk in, my light, you do not need to fight the darkness. You do not need to shatter every anxious feeling, banish every negative thought, or debate every voice in your mind. Darkness has power only when you treat it as a force attacking you. But when the light shines, you realize it is only an unlit space, like a room whose lamp has not yet been turned on. In the light, fear no longer becomes an identity. It becomes merely a signal that you are entering a place not yet filled with light. I do not ask you to be so strong that you never tremble. I only invite you into my presence long enough to realize trembling no longer has the authority to guide you. There are seasons when you believe you must defeat the darkness once and for all. Defeat fear. Defeat loneliness. Defeat old wounds. Defeat doubts about yourself. You view the soul as a battlefield where two forces pull at each other. But my child, darkness does not need to be destroyed. It only needs to stop being the place where you seek refuge. My light does not make you stand before life with a spear in your hand, always braced against every possible threat. My light allows you to walk with relaxed hands, because you no longer consider every uncertainty as danger. Like someone moving through a familiar home, you do not have to feel your way step by step. You simply walk, because the light has already told you that you are within safe borders. My child, I know there are moments when you feel that darkness comes from other people, a criticism, a betrayal, the silence of someone you love, a condescending glance. But when the light is with you, such things no longer contain the formula to break the soul. The one who has light is not the one who avoids hurt, but the one who does not allow hurt to become definition. Darkness does not overwhelm the craftsman in a familiar workshop. It is merely an environmental condition. You are the same when your soul is rooted in me. External disturbances create only movement, not chaos. Light does not turn you into someone numb. It simply shows you what is true, so that emotion no longer has the right to enthrone itself. And I want you to remember this as a spiritual principle that surpasses all reasoning. You are not safe because darkness disappears. You are safe because darkness can no longer define your life. It is not because you are strong enough to overcome it, but because it has lost the right to speak what is true about you. There are people who live in the light and still see the dark. Just as the craftsman enters his workshop and still notices the lack of illumination, yet they are not afraid. Their peace does not come from the light covering every corner, but from knowing the room already belongs to them. When you belong to me, Darkness can no longer possess your soul. It is only space awaiting illumination, and light never loses patience. One day, when your mind stops resisting and your soul stops weighing everything on a scale, you will look back over the journey you have walked and recognize a truth so simple, it may bring you to tears. Darkness was never the enemy. It is not a creature lurking beneath the earth, waiting to devour you. Not a storm with destructive intent. Not a curse clinging to the soul. Darkness is only the place where you have not chosen light. In that moment, you will understand that weakness does not lie in how much darkness there is, but whether your heart turns its back on the light. Every time you suffered pain, every time you panicked, every time you believed you would collapse, it was never because darkness was too strong, but because you believed that light could be ignored, like a traveler walking through a night forest if they carry a lamp. Darkness remains only the scenery, but if they extinguish the lamp because they think they know the path well enough, every tree becomes a threat. Darkness has not changed, only their perception has changed. Your soul is the same. When your heart still faces me, every challenge is only a path shaded by shadows, but when you turn away from me, you begin to see danger in every breath. You do not fear because life is terrifying, you fear because you walk alone. Darkness becomes a threat only when the heart no longer holds the light. Just as a familiar room becomes foreign only because you turn the light off halfway through. There are souls who spend their entire lives fighting darkness. They pull at every fear, block every negative thought, sever every relationship, build wall after wall so they will never be hurt again. But my child, fighting darkness is never the solution. That is a war without an end, because you cannot defeat something that has no substance. Darkness does not emerge from power, it comes from absence. When you pour all your energy into fighting the darkness, you accomplish only one thing. You push light away from the center of your soul. And so the more you struggle, the more exhausted you become, because you have chosen the wrong weapon. Light does not argue. Light does not resist. Light simply appears, and darkness has no place left. In the end, you will understand that the most important lesson is not how to fight, but how to return. There is no book that teaches you how to sweep darkness out of the soil of life, because that has never been the purpose. The purpose is knowing where to place the light. You do not need to decipher every wound. You do not need to explain why you once failed. You do not need to find logic for every silence. You only need to know where you stand in relation to me. If your heart remains in the light, you can walk through places not yet illuminated without losing yourself. When you keep light at the center, darkness is only a blurred border, never the foundation. And my child, the greatest freedom of the soul does not come when the world ceases to be frightening. It comes when the heart understands that fear no longer has the right to define your life. When you open yourself to the light, it is not because you have solved every shadow, but because you accept that you do not need to solve them. You live, you breathe, you love, you grow in the light and darkness, even when it remains, is only a temporary absence, not a threat. That is the moment you no longer ask, how do I flee from the darkness, but instead ask, how do I keep the light? And when the question changes, your spiritual life will change with it. Many souls step into the world believing that spiritual maturity must come with glorious victories. They believe worth is proven by surpassing others, climbing higher, enduring longer, performing better. They treat faith as a tool to gain advantage, treat light as evidence that the world must bow to them. That mindset forces you to live in a defensive posture, like a warrior, always tense for fear of defeat. But my light does not come to make you a conqueror. My light comes to free you from the obsession of having to prove yourself. When you place your source of life in me, you understand that you do not need to defeat anyone to stand firm. You only need not to leave the place where the living stream flows. There are those who begged me for the strength to overcome those who hurt them. I ask them another question: is what you truly need to defeat them, or to preserve the heart I placed within you? Faith is not a blade to strike back at life, nor a shield for you to build a fortress for your ego. If faith exists only to oppose others, it has ceased to be light. Light allows you to stand in love, not in defense. A soul that lives in the light does not need to press others down to remain stable. It only needs to know where to return when the waves rise. My presence does not make you invulnerable, but it places your weakest places in my hands. Consider a river flowing through the mountains. It does not need to prove its strength, nor contend with every stone. The water simply flows in the direction created for it. And it is that persistence that wears down the rocks over time. You do not need to break every obstacle to reach the destination. You only need not to leave the light. Some seasons of your life are not meant for rushing forward, but for endurance, like the river, not winning by speed, but by constancy. Insults will pass. Scornful looks will fade. Envy will tire itself out. You do not need to respond to stand firm. You only need not to lose the source of life, which is me. The world will always be noisy. There will be people who, when they see you're calm, will try to stir it up. There will be people who, when they see you refusing to compete, will assume you are weak. There will be people who, when they see you not responding, will conclude they have won. But a soul that knows the light is not controlled by human judgment. That calm does not come from being shielded from every event, but from no longer relying on the world to confirm your worth. People of the earth think victory is making the other side fall silent. Light teaches you that victory is keeping your heart in me, even while the other side is still speaking. That is freedom, not escaping every impact, but refusing to let any impact define your soul. The ability to stand firm in the light is not proof that you are superior. It is the expression of a life source deeper than personal will, deeper than emotional energy, deeper than instinctive self-defense. A heart placed in the light does not shut down to avoid being hurt, nor open itself out of compulsion. It lives like the source where a stream begins. What others do no longer steers you, because the rudder is in my hands. When you understand this, you will stop trying to conquer life. You will begin seeking to maintain your connection with me. That change in direction is the turning point that causes darkness, pressure, and judgment to become distant background noise, with no authority to interfere with your core. There are seasons when you think light will make every path smooth, calm the winds, change people's hearts, and cause trials to step aside. But my light does not come to remove all outward thorns. It comes to place within you a core that cannot be shattered. Life does not become less turbulent because you walk with me. Only your heart becomes less fragile. Light does not erase questions, does not make circumstances disappear, does not level every hill. Light helps you pass through all of it without losing yourself. Endurance is not the absence of fatigue. Endurance is not allowing fatigue to become a reason to give up. Remember David when he faced Goliath. Others saw a giant, a wall of steel, a battle doomed to fail. But David did not see with the trembling eyes of the crowd. The light in his heart showed him a different truth. You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord. People thought David was braver than all the warriors, but in truth, he no longer needed strength defined by the world. He did not step forward to prove he was a hero. He stepped forward because his source of life did not lie in the giant's height. It was the light that allowed him to remain calm. And only those who know this can understand David's victory did not lie in the stone, but in the heart that kept the light in the middle of the battlefield. There will be times you stand before trials and ask why I do not shield you from the things that will weary you. You pray for a smooth path, gentle people, harmonious relationships, days without upheaval. But the soul does not grow in comfort. A young tree does not root deeply when the soil is too soft. And a boat never learns balance if it is rowed only on glassy water. I do not place you in storms to expose you, but so that you will know that even when the wind lashes your skin, your soul does not leave the light. Pain only exposes what was already weak, not what was never there. My light turns those weak places into the very ground that will be restored. Those who live by the light are not those who never fall. They are those who fall without letting the fall define them. They do not deny pain, but they do not worship it. They do not run from trials, but they do not let trials become their teacher. At times you will find yourself lost in a room with no windows, a stretch of life with no answers, an accusation with no vindication, a nameless fear. You do not need to pretend to be strong. The light within you does not ask you to endure like steel. It asks that you do not let moments of weakness erase your connection with me. Endurance is not about keeping your shoulders straight. It is about keeping your heart turned in one direction. One day you will realize that endurance is not a trait born from sheer willpower. It is the state of a soul that has chosen the light so many times that turning away from it is no longer an option. Light does not promise you a life without trials. Light promises that trials will not destroy you. You will live amid noise without being led astray. Live amid misunderstanding without losing your bearings. Live amid pain without losing your kindness. Those who only seek easy roads will always panic when the ground shakes. Those whose roots are in the light simply learn to adjust their breathing, because they know their foundation does not lie in this world. There are days when you think peace appears only when everything around you comes to a halt. When others stop judging, when work is no longer stressful, when your heart no longer aches from a loss, when every question has an answer. You wait for the world's silence as if it were the condition for your soul to rest. But peace does not rest on circumstances. Just as light does not need darkness's permission to shine, peace begins when you realize that the most exhausted place is not your life, but a mind that has turned its back on me. A noisy city may make your ears ring, but only distance from the light makes your soul fall apart. Amid the chaotic sounds of humanity, peace does not shout to win. It stands still. It does not push, does not compete, does not ask permission to exist. Peace is like the beat of your heart in your chest. You rarely notice it, but if it is gone, you collapse. Those who understand the light do not try to silence everything outside. They learn to listen where noise cannot reach. That place is not on the surface of the earth, not in human eyes, not in praise or recognition. Peace is the result of an inner alignment in the right direction when the heart turns back. When you no longer ask, "Who hurt me?" but instead, "Where have I placed my soul?" When the question changes, life changes as well. Some think peace is the final stop of the journey, when they have proved enough, achieved enough, possessed enough. But peace is not a reward, it is a foundation. It is not a coat you put on when you have won, it is the skin that covers you even when you are wounded. Like one rowing a boat in high waves, they do not need a calm sea, they need to know their hands still hold the oars. Peace does not erase noise, it teaches you where to place your ear. It does not extinguish fear, it teaches you not to let fear be the compass. Stability does not come from the absence of change, it comes from having your roots in what never changes. Look at Jesus as he slept in the boat amid the storm. The disciples panicked. Waves crashed against the hull. Water flooded in. Fear drowned out their prayers. They thought peace would appear only when the waves stopped. The storm ended. The sky cleared. But he slept, not because he did not know the storm was coming, but because the storm had no right to touch the place where he had set his heart. Peace did not come from a quiet sea. Peace came from knowing who holds the sea. When they cried out, he rose not to condemn them for their fear, but to ask one question that shook history. Why are you afraid? Where is your faith? The storm ceased at his authority. But the true rescue was not the boat, it was their hearts. The one who listens to my word today may still be standing in the storm, still standing in the midst of pressure, still carrying wounds that have not yet closed. You do not need to pretend to be strong in order to deserve peace. You only need to turn back to the light so that peace can find you again. Life does not become kinder because you beg for it. Only the heart becomes more resilient when it knows where it belongs. When the soul learns to keep the light even in the noise, the world will still spin wildly. But you will walk at your own pace, slow, deep, steady. Like a craftsman who has grown familiar with a darkened room, the clamor will continue, but it will no longer be an opponent. It will be only an external sound, not an inner voice. That is peace, not the silence of the world, but the steadfastness of the soul. No soul passes through life without being judged. Some will mock you when you are weak. Some will doubt you when you are strong. Some will despise you when you are silent. And some will envy you when you shine. Judgment does not follow the logic of justice. It follows the insecurity of the human heart. But what is decisive is not what they say. It is where your heart chooses to stand. When the light still dwells within you, their words are only sounds, not sentences. An echo by itself can only repeat what your inner being is already believing. If the soul is fragile, you will mistake that echo for truth. If the soul stands in the light, you will hear it only as dust tapping against the window and falling away without leaving a trace. There are those who think themselves strong because they listen to no one. But that is only a suit of armor woven from fear. The truly strong are not those who cover their ears, but those who know how to filter what they hear. Words of human judgment have no right to go deep into your soul unless you hand them a chair in your mind. The world says you are not enough, but the light says you are being refined. The world says you are wrong, but the light says you are learning how to walk. The world says you have failed, but the light says you are putting down roots. The real question is not what the world is saying, but where your soul is standing as it listens. People may take the events of your life as evidence against you. They see a stumble and draw conclusions about your worth. They see a mistake and define your entire being. They see your silence and assume you have surrendered. But you do not belong to the story they are writing. A tender shoot breaking through the soil is not yet proof of a forest, but it is also no reason to pull it up. The judgments of people do not understand the journey. They judge only the moment. The light does not look at the moment, the light sees the road. In the light, every mistake becomes a lesson. Every fall becomes a foundation. Every tear becomes water that irrigates endurance. If you keep the light, you will learn how not to let human words become stakes driven into your soul. Remember the journey of Joseph. He was sold into slavery, imprisoned under baseless accusations, and abandoned by those who had once shared his table because of their envy. If Joseph had seen himself through the noise of judgment, he would have collapsed in that very first pit. But he kept his heart in the light of the one who had promised, and the judgments became hollow echoes. People saw a slave. The light saw the one who would save a nation from famine. People saw a supposed criminal. The light saw the steward of the years of provision. People saw failure. The light saw preparation. That difference did not lie in the circumstances, it lay in the place where the heart chose to stand. There will be moments when you want to explain, to defend yourself, to prove that you are right. Every word that rises up to protect yourself seems justified in the instant you are misunderstood. But there are battles that only darkness wants you to join, because only when you join them does it have the chance to touch you. The light does not fight every rumor. The light stands still and lets the truth reveal itself over time. When you keep your heart in the light, you do not need to rush about extinguishing every little fire that tries to burn you. That fire will die out on its own when it runs out of fuel. The deepest protection is not in self-justification, it is in refusing to let judgment become your compass. At a deeper stage of maturity, the soul's questions no longer revolve around the names, faces, and actions of those who hurt you. You begin to see that pain is not a sentence pronounced from the outside, but a reminder that something within you is ready to be opened. The question shifts from, "Why did they do that to me?" to, "What am I learning through this experience?" The light does not erase the wound, but the light turns the wound into a window. When you stop dissecting each person involved, you begin to see each layer of roots being driven deeper, each spiritual nerve being reconnected, each weak point that I am touching, so it may become a place of strength. As long as you fix the center of your attention on the one who hurt you, your soul remains bound to the role of the victim. You stand at the bottom of a ravine and see everything from the angle of loss. But when you ask, "What is being forged in me?" the position of your inner being changes at once. You are no longer at the bottom. You stand in the space where I am at work. An insult is no longer merely an insult. It becomes an opportunity to see how much you had depended on human approval. A rejection is no longer only a fracture. It becomes a mirror, showing that you were seeking validation in a place that never truly knew you. A silence is no longer abandonment. It becomes an invitation to seek the voice of the light rather than the reactions of your emotions. Remember, Job. He did not only lose his possessions, not only lose his loved ones, not only lose his health, he was also judged and accused by the very friends who should have stood by him. If Job had fixed his gaze on the question, "Who has hurt me?" his whole life would have become nothing more than a list of those who brought him down. But Job came before me with a different question: "In what ways have I failed to understand you?" And then came that mysterious stillness in which he confessed that previously he had only heard of me. But now his eyes had seen, not because his wounds were erased, but because his wounds had become the place where the light passed through. Pain no longer represented destruction. It became the doorway into a deeper knowing of me. Some carry their pain as proof that life is unfair, that they were not protected, that the world only seeks to crush them. But those who are maturing in the light understand that pain does not come to prove that they are small. Pain comes to reveal that the soul is capable of becoming greater. Each crack does not exist to make you collapse. It opens new space for faith. When you ask, "What am I learning?" you begin to see that what you once thought was loss is actually pruning. What you once thought was punishment is actually release. And what you once thought was failure is actually the moment the soil is being plowed for the harvest to come. One day, you will stand before an old pain and no longer tremble, not because it was never sharp, but because you have grown larger than the moment it happened. Pain does not disappear, but it loses its authority over you. It becomes the opening chapter of a new journey, not the final punctuation. You will see that I never sent you suffering to damage your soul, but to awaken the hidden strength within it. When the question changes, life changes. Pain is no longer the culprit. The world is no longer the attacker, and you are no longer the victim. You become a learner in the light. There is a silent journey that unfolds within the soul, one that does not begin with thunder and does not end in fireworks. It begins with a simple choice to keep the light, not through force, nor through fierce vows, but by turning your face toward me, even when your vision is still fogged. Some souls believe the light only arrives when life has fewer shadows, yet the light is always present. It simply waits quietly for the heart to return, not because you need to prove anything, but because you must remember what you once knew. Darkness never has authority over the soul unless you abandon the light. I do not tell you that life will be gentle. I do not promise that you will always be treated fairly. I do not say that everyone you love will understand you. But I tell you that the light within you will make these things unable to define you. Light does not shield you from the wind. It teaches you how to stand when the wind arrives. You were not born to be placed in a glass garden without storms. You were born to know that even if the sky splits somewhere above, your heart still has a refuge. Not an external refuge, but a refuge within me. There will be seasons when you feel tired, deeply tired, not because you are weaker than others, but because you have placed too many expectations on yourself. You want to please everyone. You want to keep peace for all. You want to live according to the standards in every gaze, every compliment, every judgment. And one day, your feet will no longer move, not because the world is too strong, but because you forgot that you were not created to live by the gaze of the world. Light does not live on applause. It lives on presence. So do you. Some will leave you when you choose the light, not because the light makes you unpleasant, but because it reveals the parts of them they are not ready to face. Do not see it as a failure. People do not leave you because you are wrong. Sometimes they leave because you no longer resemble the darkness they were comfortable with. When the light enters, what has no roots will fall away on its own. You do not need to cling. You only need to stand. Love does not demand that you diminish yourself to keep others near. Love only asks that you do not abandon the light out of fear of being alone. There are pains you once believed were wounds that would never heal. There are words that once pierced straight into your heart, making you believe you were not enough. But when you learn to turn your face toward the source of light, those wounds are no longer cuts. They become the signs that you have lived, have believed, have loved, and have continued. A scar does not speak of weakness. It speaks of resilience. A soul that has never cracked is a soul that has never been healed. I do not hurt you, I only remove from you the things that draw you away from the light. Many still believe they must fight darkness each day. They burn their exhaustion, burn their fears, burn their past, burn the memories that have not yet closed. But you do not need to fight darkness. You only need to keep the light. No one can defeat what has no essence. Darkness needs only your back turned. If you keep your direction, it has nowhere to cling. The destiny of darkness is always to vanish before presence, not to be slain by sword and spear. When you remember this, life sheds many unnecessary battles. Those battles do not shatter you from the outside. It is the thought that you must fight which wears you down from within. You may think you need silence to find peace, but peace does not arise from the absence of noise. It is born when the heart is no longer carried away by noise. A room filled with sound cannot break the soul that knows where it belongs. Do not search for a peaceful world. Search for the place of peace within you. Stillness is not escaping life. Stillness is standing within life without losing direction. When you remember your life, you may see the fractures, the crossroads, the long nights witnessed by no one. Not because I abandoned you, but because I know that the light can only be chosen in freedom. If I pulled you through every moment, the light would be nothing but reins, not a choice. A soul grows when it decides to turn toward the source of light, even when no one sees, even without praise, even when the world is silent as though it does not exist. It is the steps you take in the quiet that weave your strength. Some ask me, when will I stop being afraid? I answer, when fear is no longer the place where you seek answers. You will still feel the tremors in your heart when facing the unknown, but trembling will no longer turn you back. You will still see closed doors, but you will no longer believe they are closed because you are unworthy. You will still hear judgment, but it will no longer demand that you prove yourself. When the light is within you, everything from disappointment to expectation becomes a reflection, no longer a verdict. One day, when you stand before the pain of the past, you will breathe deeply and your heart will no longer be heavy, not because you have forgotten, but because you have outgrown the place where the pain could reach. You will realize that I did not take you out of the trials. I led you through the trials. I did not break you so that I could mend you. I taught you how to stand so that you may know what you were made of. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" because you have understood that every tear watered the seed of faith within you. You will remember the moments when you thought you had only a single thread of hope left. Yet it was then that you were held by my hand, though you did not know it. There were times you thought yourself a failure, but I saw resilience. There were times you wept over loss, but I saw expansion. There were times you hesitated out of fear, but I saw the first step of a soul learning to trust. I do not ask you to be perfect. I only ask that you do not abandon the light, not because I need your loyalty to be mighty, but because your soul is healthy only when nourished in that source of life. The light does not need you to be great. It is you who needs the light so you do not fall into the abyss of self-denial. You were not created to fight alone. You were created to live in me. Remember this. Not with your mind, but with your heart. Darkness does not win when it grows stronger. Darkness wins when you abandon the light. Keep the light, even if it is as faint as a dying breath, as quiet as a whisper, as small as a single ember in your chest. Keep it, for even a little light is enough to lead you out of the long night. Keep the light, not just once, not only for a moment. Now, pray like this, Lord. Please do not let me confuse fluctuations in my emotions with the truth of the soul. When I am weary, when my heart becomes fragile, when small worries swell into great waves, please bring me back to the light. Teach me that this panic is not the world attacking me, but a sign that I have forgotten to keep my eyes on you. Grant me the awareness to recognize that darkness has no power if I keep my heart within your presence. Lord, grant me the courage to stop running and simply whisper, "I need you." Pull me away from the habit of trying harder, pushing myself just a little more, straining once again, only to prove to myself that I do not need to call upon you. Teach me to remember that I am not your enemy. Yet many times I have abandoned you through silence. Let my heart respond to your call, gentle as breath. Lord, do not let me treat emptiness as something normal. There are moments when my soul does not feel pain, nor joy, nor longing, just drifting, just silence, just lostness. Remind me that this silence is not peace, but a sign that the distance between me and the light has only grown longer. Forgive me for allowing numbness to fill the space that should belong to you. Lord, heal the small fractures I have neglected, like scratches on the skin that are harmless when tended to, but grow dangerous when ignored. There are tiny wounds in my heart that become disease when I do not bring them to you. Touch the fears I dare not acknowledge, the disappointments I try to hide, the memories I believe are old but still continue to bleed. Do not let them quietly rot my soul. Lord, teach me not to see life through reactions, but through the inner resource you have placed within me. I have turned gentle counsel into offense, silence into abandonment, a small failure into a final ending, not because the world has changed, but because I walked without carrying the light. Restore to me the ability to see all things in the peace you give. Lord, forgive me for the many times I have let emotions become my guide. When I was elated, I believed I was blessed. When I was sorrowful, I believed I was forsaken. When I was successful, I thought you were making a way. When I faced hardship, I asked why. You turned away. Remind me that light does not move according to mood charts. Emotions are just waves, and you are the shore. Help me cease living like a boat, drifting with the wind. Lord, let me know how to return before I am depleted. Do not let me wait until my heart is parched, my mind tangled, and my soul wandering before remembering you. Allow me to seek you in my weakest moments when I no longer have the strength to hold myself together, when I want to give up, when my heart is like dry ground. Welcome me, even if I return only with breath, not with a perfect prayer. Lord, teach me that weakness is not proof that I am under attack, but a reminder that I have let the light fade. Do not let me treat exhaustion as punishment, but as the bell calling me back to the place where you still stand. Make me remember that every wind only reveals the depth of the roots. It never decides the fate of the tree. Lord, keep me from the habit of blame. I have many times faulted the world for its storms, blamed others for my wounds, and blamed circumstances for being stuck. But I have never asked, how long have I been away from you? Break the belief that I am a victim of life, and instead sow in me the truth that, with just one step back, I stand again within the peace no storm can touch. Lord, remove from me the vague pride that makes me believe I can stand on my own, even when I no longer hear your voice. Teach me that silence is not strength, endurance is not maturity, and my failure to call on you does not mean I do not need you. Give me the courage to open my mouth, open my eyes, and open my heart toward you. Lord, grant me the discernment to distinguish my voice from yours. When I am tense, my emotions ring like truth. When I am lonely, my thoughts become prophets. When I am afraid, my imagination turns everything into threats. Let me remember that these noises are not enemies, they simply lack guiding light. Teach me to sit still and say, please, lead me. Lord, bring me back to the sacred simplicity of communion with you. Not grand plans, not strength to prove anything, not moral armor to be worthy of love. Only your light and my heart. Let me find peace not because the world grows gentler, but because I no longer walk away from you. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong community of faith.